May 1945. The city of Lena lies in ruins, a skeletal shadow of what it once was. Shattered buildings lean against each other like wounded soldiers, their windows vacant eyes, staring into nothing. The streets are carpeted with rubble and ash, the acrid smell of destruction still hanging in the air weeks after the last bombs fell. In this wasteland, 12-year-old Lena crouches beside her older sister Miriam, listening to a crackling radio that once promised them victory. The voice on the radio is different now. Gone are the triumphant marches, the speeches about the 1,000-year Reich. Instead, a somber announcement confirms what the whispers in the streets already knew. Germany has surrendered. The war is over. They have lost. Lena looks at Miriam, searching her sister's face for understanding. At 17, Miriam seems ancient to Lena, her eyes carrying a weight that no teenager should bear. Their mother, Elsa, died 6 months ago when Allied bombers turned their neighborhood into an inferno. The memory of that night, the sirens, the explosions, the orange glow consuming the sky, still makes Lena's hands shake. Their father, Klaus, marched away to the Eastern Front 2 years earlier. They haven't heard from him since his last letter arrived in the winter of 1944, stained with mud and speaking of bitter cold. Lena keeps that letter folded in her pocket, reading it until the words blur. She tells herself he's alive, that he'll walk through their broken door any day now. But deep down, in a place she won't acknowledge, doubt grows like a weed. The sisters live in what remains of their apartment building, 3 walls and a partially collapsed ceiling they've propped up with salvaged timber. At night, they huddle together for warmth, sharing a single threadbare blanket. During the day, they scavenge. A potato is a treasure, a piece of bread is a feast. Lena remembers when the radio praised their sacrifices, when teachers at school spoke of honor and destiny. She remembers believing those words, wearing them like armor against her hunger. But now the radio speaks of defeat, and those words feel hollow, like empty shells on a battlefield. Miriam moves through their makeshift home with practiced efficiency, rationing their last dried beans. Her movements are slow, deliberate. She conserves energy like she conserves food. Lena notices how her sister's dress hangs loose, how her collarbone protrudes sharply beneath pale skin. "What happens now?" Lena asks, her voice small against the enormity of their situation. Miriam pauses, her hand stilling over the beans. "The Americans are coming," she says finally. "They'll occupy the city." The word hangs between them. Americans. Throughout the war, they'd been taught to fear this word. The propaganda posters showed monsters, barbarians who would bring chaos and destruction. The teachers warned them. The radio warned them. Everyone warned them. Lena feels her stomach tighten. They've survived the bombs, the hunger, the cold. But what comes next? What happens when the enemy arrives? Outside their broken window, the city waits in collective anxiety. Neighbors whisper behind closed doors. Families hide what little they have left. The certainty that guided their lives for 12 years has shattered like glass, and no one knows what will replace it. Lena touches the letter in her pocket again, drawing what comfort she can from her father's faded words. In this moment, between one world ending and another beginning, she clings to the only thing she has left, hope that somehow, against all odds, they will survive what comes next. The radio continues its broadcast, white noise filling the spaces between words, static replacing the future. The days following surrender blur together in a haze of uncertainty. Lena and Miriam move through the ruins like ghosts, joining the silent procession of survivors who search for food, for water, for any sign that life might continue. The city has become a landscape of whispers. On every corner, in every breadline, people speak in hushed voices about what's coming. "The Americans are 3 days away," someone says. "No, 2 days. They're already at the outskirts." Lena listens to these conversations, trying to separate truth from panic. "They'll burn what's left," an old woman tells her neighbor, while they wait for their ration of watery soup. "They'll take revenge for what we did." "I heard they shoot civilians on sight," another voice adds. No trials, no mercy. Lena glances at Miriam, who stands rigid beside her, face unreadable. Her sister has learned to hide emotion, to present a mask of composure even when fear eats at her insides. But Lena knows better. She sees the way Miriam's hands tremble when she thinks no one is watching. At night, the propaganda they absorbed for years plays in Lena's mind like a broken record. The Americans are savages. The Americans are monsters. The Americans will destroy everything. She tries to remember if she ever questioned these words before, when the radio spoke them with authority and her teachers nodded in agreement. She can't remember. The propaganda had been everywhere, in everything, until it became as natural as breathing. Herr Fischer, their elderly neighbor, knocks on their wall one evening. He squeezes through the gap that used to be their doorway, carrying a small jar of preserved vegetables, a gift that represents enormous sacrifice. "Hide anything valuable," he tells them, his voice grave. "When they come, stay inside. Don't look them in the eye. Don't speak unless spoken to." He pauses, looking at Miriam with particular concern. "Especially you, young women. You understand what I'm saying?" Miriam nods slowly, and Lena feels something cold settle in her chest. She's 12, but she's not stupid. She understands what Herr Fischer isn't saying directly. After he leaves, Miriam sits on their makeshift bed, staring at nothing. "We should prepare," she says finally. "We'll need to register with them, probably, show papers, prove we weren't." She trails off, unable or unwilling to complete the sentence. Lena thinks about their father, about his uniform, about the medals he earned that their mother once displayed proudly. They buried those medals in the rubble when the fighting grew close, buried them like shameful secrets. "Were we?" Lena asks quietly. "Were we what they'll say we were?" Miriam looks at her sister, and for the first time in months, Lena sees tears forming in her eyes. "I don't know anymore," Miriam whispers. "I don't know what we were, what we believed, what was real and what was lies." Outside, the city holds its breath. Families board up windows. People hide food, valuables, daughters. The churches fill with prayers for mercy. The schools stand empty, their classrooms waiting for a future no one can imagine. And through it all, one question echoes in every mind. What will the Americans do when they arrive? Lena lies awake that night, listening to the sound of distant engines growing closer. They come at dawn. Lena wakes to the rumble of engines, a sound that makes her heart jump into her throat. She scrambles to the window, pressing her face against the cracked glass. Miriam is already there, frozen, watching the convoy roll down what used to be the main street. Tanks, jeeps, trucks covered in canvas. The vehicles move in perfect formation, disciplined and methodical. American flags ripple in the morning breeze, stars and stripes that look strange and foreign against the grey devastation of the city. The soldiers wear uniforms Lena has only seen in propaganda posters, but those posters lied about everything else. These men don't look like monsters. They look tired, human. Some are barely older than Miriam. "Stay away from the window," Miriam hisses, pulling Lena back. But neither can stop watching. The convoy stops in the town square. Soldiers dismount, moving with practiced efficiency. They speak to each other in English, a language that sounds harsh and incomprehensible to Lena's ears. Officers consult maps. Radio operators set up equipment. Within an hour, the Americans have established a command post where the monument to the Führer once stood. The city watches from behind curtains and through cracks in walls. No one ventures outside. The silence is suffocating, broken only by American voices and the metallic clink of equipment. Then something unexpected happens. A soldier begins unloading crates from one of the trucks. Another joins him, then another. Lena squints, trying to understand what she's seeing. Food. They're unloading food, boxes marked with red crosses, sacks that might contain flour or grain, medical supplies stacked in neat rows. "What are they doing?" Lena whispers. Miriam shakes her head slowly, confusion written across her face. "I don't know." An American officer, Lena can tell by the insignia on his uniform, steps forward with a megaphone. He speaks in broken, heavily accented German. "Attention, citizens. You must register at the school building. Bring identification papers. You will receive food rations and medical care. This is mandatory. No one will be harmed if you comply." The words hang in the air. No one moves. The officer repeats the announcement, his voice echoing off broken buildings. Still, The city remains hidden, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Then Frau Kellerman, the baker's widow, emerges from her basement shelter. She's ancient, bent with age and hardship, moving with agonizing slowness. The Americans watch her approach, soldiers tense, hands near weapons. Lena holds her breath. Frau Kellerman reaches the square. An American soldier steps forward. For a terrible moment, nothing happens. Then the soldier gestures to the crates, speaking gentle words in English. Another soldier brings the old woman a blanket and a box of supplies. Frau Kellerman begins to cry. One by one, others emerge. Families with children, elderly men, women carrying babies. The trickle becomes a stream. The Americans organize them into lines, distributing supplies with mechanical efficiency. There's no violence, no screaming, no chaos. Miriam grips Lena's hand. "We need to go," she says. "We need to register, get food." But Lena can see the conflict in her sister's eyes, the collision between years of propaganda and the evidence unfolding before them. The Americans are supposed to be monsters. So why are they handing out bread? The walk to the school takes forever. Miriam moves like someone decades older, each step a visible effort. 3 weeks ago, she twisted her ankle scrambling over rubble while searching for firewood. The injury never healed properly. How could it? Without medicine, without proper food, without rest. Now, as they join the stream of civilians heading toward the registration point, Miriam's limp grows more pronounced. Lena watches her sister's face tighten with pain, sees the sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool morning air. The school sits atop a gentle hill, a climb that would have been nothing before the war. Now it might as well be a mountain. "I can make it," Miriam says through gritted teeth, reading the worry in Lena's eyes. "Just slowly." They're halfway up when Miriam's leg buckles. She catches herself against Lena, breathing hard, her face pale as milk. Other civilians flow around them like water around stones, too focused on their own survival to stop. "Rest," Lena pleads. "Just for a minute," but Miriam shakes her head stubbornly. "We can't lose our place in line. We need those rations." She takes another agonizing step, then another. Her breathing comes in sharp gasps. That's when Lena sees him. An American soldier, young, with red hair visible beneath his helmet. He's been directing traffic, guiding civilians toward the registration tables. Now he's walking directly toward them, his boots crunching on gravel. Lena's heart stops. She moves instinctively in front of Miriam, small and fierce, ready to protect her sister from whatever comes next. The soldier raises his hands, palms out, speaking in English. His tone is gentle, but Lena doesn't understand the words. He gestures at Miriam, then at the hill, then makes a carrying motion. Understanding crashes over Lena like cold water. He wants to help. He wants to carry Miriam up the hill. "No," Miriam says sharply in German. "No, we don't need—" But her protest dies as her leg gives out again. This time Lena can't hold her. Miriam sinks to her knees, shame and pain twisting her features. The soldier doesn't hesitate. He crouches beside Miriam, still speaking in that soft, incomprehensible English. He points to his back, making the gesture universal. "Climb on." Lena looks at her sister. Miriam's face is a battlefield of emotion. Pride wars with exhaustion. Years of propaganda scream that this is the enemy, that accepting help means accepting defeat, accepting shame. But her body has already surrendered to necessity. "Miriam," Lena whispers, "please." Slowly, with visible reluctance, Miriam allows the soldier to help her onto his back. He rises smoothly, as if her weight is nothing, and begins walking up the hill. Lena follows, her mind reeling. The soldier doesn't speak. He doesn't demand gratitude or acknowledgement. He simply carries Miriam to the top of the hill, sets her down gently near the registration tables, nods once, and walks away to continue his duties. Miriam stares after him, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Not tears of pain this time. Something else. Something that doesn't have words yet. Lena takes her sister's hand and squeezes. In that moment, something shifts. A crack appears in the wall of certainty they've lived behind for so long. If the enemy can be kind, what else were they wrong about? The transformation happens gradually, Then all at once, within a week, the Americans establish a rhythm to occupation. Supply trucks arrive daily, bringing food that seems impossible after years of scarcity. White bread, canned meat, powdered milk, chocolate bars that American soldiers hand to children with easy smiles. Lena watches this new world take shape, with a mixture of wonder and confusion. The propaganda never mentioned this. It never said the enemy would rebuild the water pumps, clear the streets of rubble, set up medical clinics in abandoned buildings. It never prepared her for soldiers who play baseball in empty lots, who share cigarettes with former enemies, who show photographs of their own families back home. Miriam recovers slowly. Her ankle heals with proper bandaging from the American medics. Color returns to her cheeks as regular meals become reality rather than memory. But the healing in her mind takes longer. "I don't understand," she says one evening, as they eat their ration of stew, real stew, with vegetables and meat. "Why are they helping us after everything?" Lena has no answer. She's 12 years old, trying to reconcile the monsters from the posters with the soldier who carried her sister, with the medic who bandaged her scraped knee without asking questions, with the cook who always gives her an extra ladle of soup. The city begins to breathe again. Shops reopen, selling what little they have. People emerge from their hiding places, blinking like creatures unused to light. Conversations happen in the streets, tentative at first, then growing bolder. Life impossibly continues, but not everyone adapts. Herr Fischer refuses to register, hiding in his basement and muttering about German pride. Frau Weber spits whenever American soldiers pass, her face twisted with hatred that years of defeat haven't diminished. The pastor gives sermons about forgiveness, while his eyes remain hard and unforgiving. Lena sees the divide opening in her community. Some embrace the new reality, grateful for food and stability. Others cling to the old certainties, unable or unwilling to let go of what they believed for so long. She finds herself in the middle, a child observer of adult contradictions. One afternoon, while waiting in line for rations, Lena watches an American soldier try to communicate with Frau Kellerman using hand gestures and broken German. The old woman laughs, actually laughs, at his mangled pronunciation. The soldier grins, not offended, and they continue their strange conversation of mismatched words and shared humor. How does this happen? How do enemies become... what? Not friends, perhaps, but not enemies either. Something in between. Something the propaganda never had words for. Miriam notices Lena's contemplation. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. "The soldier who helped you," Lena says. "I never thanked him. I don't even know his name." Miriam's expression softens. "I know, I think about him too." She pauses, choosing her words carefully. "They're not what we were told, but that means..." She trails off, unable or unwilling to complete the thought. But Lena understands. If the Americans aren't monsters, then who were the real monsters? If the enemy shows compassion, what does that make those who showed none? These questions hang between them, too heavy for easy answers. The city rebuilds, brick by brick, meal by meal. But the rebuilding of belief, that takes longer. The letter arrives on a Tuesday morning in June, carried by an American military postal clerk. Lena doesn't recognize the handwriting on the envelope at first. It's been over a year since she last saw her father's script. Her hands shake as she passes it to Miriam. "It's from Father," Miriam whispers, her voice barely audible. "He's alive." They sit on their repaired doorstep. American engineers helped stabilize their building last week, and Miriam opens the envelope with trembling fingers. Lena presses close, reading over her sister's shoulder. The letter is dated May 15th, 1945. Written from somewhere called Camp Concordia, Kansas, United States of America. Klaus writes in careful, measured sentences, as if choosing each word with deliberate precision. "My dear daughters," the letter begins. "I hope this reaches you. I hope you are safe. I hope you have forgiven me for leaving." Lena feels tears prick her eyes. She hasn't forgiven him. She's been angry at him for dying, for abandoning them. Except he didn't die. He's been alive this whole time, thousands of miles away behind American barbed wire. Klaus describes his capture near Berlin in the final chaotic days of the war, the forced march westward, the fear of Soviet captivity. Then, unexpectedly, being transported across the ocean to America. "I expected brutality," he writes. "I expected revenge. We had been told stories, terrible stories about what the Americans do to prisoners. I prepared myself for death. But death didn't come. Instead, Klaus describes barracks with beds and blankets, regular meals, not lavish, but adequate, medical care for the wounded, work details that pay small wages, American guards who enforce discipline but not cruelty. There is a German prisoner here," Klaus continues, "who was captured in 1943. He has been here for 2 years. He told me something I could not believe at first. He said the Americans treat us better than our own officers treated us in the Wehrmacht. He said he eats better here than he did in Berlin before the war." Miriam stops reading, her hands frozen on the paper. Lena looks at her sister's face and sees her own confusion reflected there. Klaus writes about conversations with American soldiers, many of whose grandparents came from Germany. About church services the Americans allow prisoners to hold. About a small library where prisoners can read books in German. About baseball games between prisoner teams, watched by guards who cheer and place friendly bets. "I do not understand it," Klaus admits. "We were enemies. We killed their friends, their brothers. They should hate us. Many do, I can see it in their eyes. But still they treat us with, I hesitate to use the word, but I can find no other, humanity." The letter concludes with questions about their mother. Lena and Miriam exchange glances. They haven't written back yet. How do you tell a father that his wife is dead? That the bombs he couldn't protect her from did what no enemy soldier did? "He doesn't know," Lena says softly. "No," Miriam agrees. "He doesn't know anything, not about Mother. Not about how close we came to starving, not about—" She pauses. "Not about how wrong everything we believed turned out to be." Lena takes the letter, reading it again. Her father's words dismantle another piece of the world she thought she understood. The Americans were supposed to be monsters, but monsters don't feed their prisoners. Monsters don't allow church services. Monsters don't treat enemies with humanity. Who then were the monsters? The announcement comes in late June. All citizens must attend a mandatory screening at the town hall. No exceptions. Rumors spread quickly. Some say it's about rationing. Others whisper about trials and punishment. Lena and Miriam go together, joining the silent crowd that fills the hall. American soldiers set up a projector and a white screen at the front. The room grows dark. No one speaks. No one knows what's coming. Then the film begins. At first, Lena doesn't understand what she's seeing. Black and white images flicker across the screen, barbed wire, watchtowers, people in striped uniforms, so thin their bones press against skin like cages trying to escape bodies. Then the camera moves closer. Mountains of skeletal corpses stacked like firewood. Open pits filled with bodies. Survivors with hollow eyes and numbers tattooed on their arms. Children who look like ancient ghosts. Ovens, gas chambers. Documentation meticulously kept. Names and numbers recording industrialized death. The film identifies places. Dachau, Bergen-Belsen, Auschwitz. Names that mean nothing to Lena, yet somehow mean everything. Someone in the audience vomits. Others begin to cry. Many sit frozen, faces blank with shock. Lena feels Miriam's hand grip hers so tightly it hurts, but she doesn't pull away. The pain grounds her, keeps her from floating away from the horror on the screen. The narrator speaks in German, his voice clinical and precise. 6 million Jews, millions more, Poles, Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, anyone deemed undesirable, camps across Germany, Austria, Poland. A network of death operating while ordinary people lived their ordinary lives. "We didn't know," someone shouts from the back. "We didn't know." But the film continues, relentless. It shows the camp's proximity to towns and cities, shows the prisoners used as slave labor in factories, shows the trains that transported the condemned, trains that passed through stations where German citizens waited for their own connections. Lena thinks about the trains she saw during the war, the sealed cattle cars that rumbled through their station. She remembers asking her mother once where those trains were going. "Don't ask questions. her mother had said. "It's not our concern. Not our concern." The lights come on. An American officer stands before them, his face hard. Behind him, the final image from the film remains frozen on the screen. A pile of children's shoes, thousands of them, sorted by size. "This is what you supported," he says in German. "This is what your government did. This is what your silence allowed." The pastor stands, his voice shaking. "We were deceived. The propaganda—" "The camps were in your country," the officer interrupts. "The prisoners worked in your factories. The smoke from the crematoria drifted over your towns. You chose not to see." Silence falls like a weight. Miriam stands suddenly, pulling Lena toward the exit. They stumble outside into the bright summer afternoon. The sunlight feels obscene after the darkness of the film. Miriam collapses against the building's wall, gasping for air. "We knew," she whispers. "Not the details, but we knew something. The disappearances, the things people said quietly, the empty synagogue. We knew and we did nothing." Lena thinks about her teachers, her neighbors, her parents. Good people, ordinary people. People who followed orders, who believed what they were told, who chose the comfort of ignorance over the burden of knowledge. "Frau Goldstein," Lena says suddenly. "Remember her? She lived 3 doors down. She had a son my age." Miriam closes her eyes. "They left in 1938. Father said they were being resettled." "Where did they resettle her, Miriam? Where?" Her sister has no answer.